You ever have that feeling? You're more connected online than ever before, but somehow you also feel more alone. Well, that's the big mystery we're diving into today using Robert Putnam's amazing book, Bowling Alone, as our guide to figure out what's happened to the American community.
It really is the paradox of our time, isn't it? We've got all these tools to connect, but that feeling of disconnection is just everywhere. We're going to unpack the data behind that feeling and uncover this sort of invisible force that's supposed to hold our communities together. And look, this isn't just some vague feeling people have. The evidence is literally all around us. Putnam starts his book with stories just like these. The local bridge club that's just a shadow of its former self, or the VFW post where membership has totally dwindled. These aren't just random stories, they're symptoms of a much bigger trend.
And Robert Putnam gave this whole thing a name, the bowling alone paradox. He noticed that while more Americans were physically going bowling than ever, league membership, the part where you do it together, had absolutely plummeted. It's such a perfect metaphor. We're still doing the things we used to do, we're just not doing them together anymore.
So what is going on here? What's causing all this? Well, Putnam's investigation found that it wasn't one single thing, but the slow, steady erosion of this crucial, often invisible resource, something that acts like the very glue of society.
And that resource is called social capital. Now, this is the central idea of the entire book, and if you can wrap your head around this, you'll understand exactly what's happened to our communities.
So what is it really? Well, here's the official definition from Putnam. The connections among individuals, social networks, and the norms of reciprocity and trustworthiness that arise from them. Okay, in plain English, it's the value that's baked into our relationships. It's not what you know or even who you know. It's the trust and support that's built into the fabric of your networks.
And social capital, it works on two different levels. For you, personally, it might be getting a tip on a new job or having a neighbor you can trust to grab your mail. But for the community, it creates these huge spillover benefits, things like safer streets and better schools. It really is the hidden ingredient that makes a society work. Okay, so if social capital is so important, what's the actual proof that it's disappearing? Let's look at the data, because honestly, the numbers here are pretty shocking.
Let's start with politics, where you see this wild paradox. While the money spent on campaigns shot through the roof, hundreds of millions of dollars, actual participation from citizens, like going to a meeting or working for a party, just fell off a cliff. We basically became spectators in our own democracy instead of players on the field.
And this isn't just a big national thing. This trend hits us right where we live. Attendance at local meetings, about your town or your kid's school, has been in a steady nosedive for decades. The very foundation of civic life is just eroding.
This table just lays it out so starkly. In just about 20 years, the number of people who served as an officer of any club dropped 42%. Worked for a political party? Down 39%. These are not small dips, folks. This is a massive collapse in how people participate in public life.
And to make this feel even more real, just look at the PTA, the Parent-Teacher Association. You can see this huge boom right after World War II, a time of peak community engagement. But then, after the early 1960s, just a dramatic, sustained fall. This was an institution that used to be the heart of the community, and now it's struggling.
And here's the number that kind of pulls it all together. By 1999, only 35% of Americans went to a club meeting of any kind. Now get this, just 2 decades earlier, in the mid-70s, that number was 58%. That is a huge drop in the simple, face-to-face stuff that builds social capital.
But wait, the story gets even deeper, because it turns out that not all social capital is created equal. Putnam makes this really important distinction that helps explain not just why we're lonely, but why we're so divided. Yeah, this whole decline, it's not just a story about feeling lonely. It's also a story about division. Putnam argues that the type of social capital we've lost is just as important as the sheer amount we've lost. And it's a huge reason our society feels so polarized right now. So here's the breakdown. You've got bonding capital, that's connecting with people who are like you, your family, your tight-knit group of friends, people from the same background. Putnam calls it a sociological superglue. It's awesome for getting by. Then you have bridging capital. This is about connecting with people who are not like you. It's inclusive. He calls this a sociological WD-40 because it greases the wheels of society and is absolutely crucial for getting ahead.
So what does this look like in the real world? Well, bonding capital, you'd find that in places like ethnic fraternal groups or maybe a very close-knit church group. Bridging capital, on the other hand, that's what you see in big movements like the civil rights movement or in diverse public schools and youth service groups, places where people from totally different walks of life have to find a way to work together. And it's this bridging capital that has taken the biggest hit.
Okay, so we've seen the decline, and we get the difference between bonding and bridging capital. But so what? What are the real-world consequences? Why does any of this actually matter?
Well, the answer is pretty simple, and Putnam says it perfectly right here. Neighborhoods and communities don't work so well when community bonds have withered. It's just that. When social capital goes down, our democracy is less effective, our economy is less dynamic, and our communities just aren't as safe.
So here's the big takeaway. That feeling of disconnection that so many of us have, it's not just in your head. It is a real, measurable crisis across society, backed up by decades of data. The health of our democracy, our communities, and our own well-being is directly tied to the strength of these connections. Which leaves us with the ultimate question, the one posed by the book's title. If the old ways of connecting have faded, and we are, in so many ways, bowling alone, well, how do we start a new league? What's it going to take to rebuild that vital social capital for our time? That's the challenge that Putnam leaves for all of us to think about.